Welcome back to the Wicky Wacky radio show. I'm your host, Frank.
And I'm Reid.
And today, I thought it would be fun to go over idioms. What they are, what makes them interesting, and how a lot of cultures have idioms in common. But before we get started, I'd like to remind you to follow us on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to us on YouTube. So to get into this a little bit, followers would know that I studied English, I studied language in college, and I've always thought idioms were fun and kind of interesting. And I was just asking Reid here the other day if he happened to have a favorite. And it kind of just got me into thinking about all these different idioms and how much I like idioms. And I thought it might just be something fun and maybe a little wacky to go over out of nowhere, just something random to do on the show. So
let's get the show on the road.
All right. Well, to get started, do you know what an idiom is exactly, or is that common knowledge exactly? Would you think?
Well, I'm not sure about how easily I would say what they are. I don't really think about what. I know what they are, like in use. But like, if somebody came to me and asked what an idiom was, I would basically just say, well, they're like phrases that mean things that aren't usually what they say.
Oh, well, that part gets a little closer to it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know the most common way that people usually speak about idioms, just out in the world, like just in the common parlance. It's usually when talking about how people who are learning English as a second language struggle mostly with the idioms. And I think it's not because idioms are a foreign concept in and of themselves, you'll see, but it's just because we have a lot in English, just a ton. And I'll probably get into why I think that is here in a minute or, a little later down the line, but I just think it's interesting. My favorite definition, proper definition, if you will, of an idiom is a phrase or expression that largely or exclusively carries a figurative or non-literal meaning rather than making any literal sense. So, it's like you said, it doesn't mean what it says.
Yeah.
So is there an easy, just perfect example that you think is would be quite common to most people?
I don't know if it's really a good example, but the one I had mentioned to you earlier that I think might be my favorite is let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's really a good example of an easy one that people might get.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and they change through time. There's a really common one right now that the kids say all the time, spill the tea. Let's spill the tea. Do you have tea to spill? You spill the tea, girl. Whatever. They say that all the time.
I feel like
that would be an idiom for...
that's interesting. That
spreading gossip or having a gossip session, that kind of concept.
Well, it almost seems... it's interesting that you say it's something like a younger generation uses or is using, but it almost sounds like a British one, especially with the tea part. Because, over there across the pond, they're big on their tea.
Yeah. So, I think that's probably where it comes from, though, is because around tea time, girls gossip and talk and have their tea and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting, I'll double down and say that, idioms are common in all languages. That's not, most people who don't study language like linguistics, from a, how would you say that? Macro language from a macro perspective.
Sure.
Don't often think that just these idioms that they might be used to using in their everyday life are common. You might take that for granted. But it's perfectly true. Just like grammar all languages have the same parts of speech. They
Right.
all portray the same concepts. We all ask for help and food and you know what I mean, directions. So
Well, it also makes some sort of sense because in some ways, a lot of human life is pretty common.
yeah, there are and
Yeah.
there are commonalities to thought
Right,
patterns
exactly.
too, and what's
Sure.
logical and how to yeah. So anyway, idioms are a unique way to express culture sometimes though.
Mhm.
Sometimes they are fun and interesting ways to connect with people, like from certain areas. Like a certain area might say something that's very unique to the area. Like,
Right.
I don't know, when in Rome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an easy one. I don't know if it's a slam dunk or perfect or anything,
Sure.
but you know what I mean? It's very, they can be very specific to, a certain culture or a certain place or a
Right.
certain way of life or way of thinking. So some examples of how idioms either can or are used across cultures are like in shared phrases. Like, for example, the expression, it's all Greek to me.
Oh, yeah.
That's very common across many cultures. It doesn't number how many, but I think it's common for a reason, because the Romans, they took over so much area, and the Greeks also traded and interacted with so many people and spread their culture.
Right.
The New Testament was written in Greek, and it's a strange lettering, and there's strange symbols, and you know what I mean. It's very foreign to our more what do you call it, phonetic system of writing. So it looks strange, so
Yeah,
it
right.
kind of makes sense, the whole it's all Greek to me, because even just the letters look foreign and strange. Idioms can convey similar ideas in different ways across cultures too. Like, for example, the phrase "to live in an ivory tower,"
Yeah.
that appears in more than 35 different languages.
Oh, wow.
So, and those 35 languages, they could be spoken in multiple countries depending on which languages they are. So that's how many languages, not how many countries.
Right.
So if you think about area coverage and how many people share this phrase, to live in an ivory tower, the idea that, somebody's elevated or thinks of themselves that way. They've been elevated by position or by whatever, academia to some high, lofty place. That's interesting.
Right. I think it kind of makes sense that a lot of them would be shared because it's probably another old one.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
From times of when things like ivory were really sought after and saw to be like royalty and things like that.
Sure. But they also can be different ways of expressing the same message. Like, different cultures have different ways of expressing it, but almost all have a version of the phrase, and they lived happily ever after.
Huh.
That's interesting too,
Yeah.
right? Because think of how common it is to tell a child a fairy tale,
Sure.
or a tall tale, or a story.
Right.
However you want to think about it. So,
Right.
but there are also some idioms that don't translate very well. And these are the more interesting ones. Like, these are the ones that the linguists would really delight in, because they would be the much less common. You wouldn't really know these. These are the really niche sort of idioms. Like, a good example is the German phrase Tomaten auf den Augen haben. Literally, it translates to "you have tomatoes on your eyes."
Oh.
And it means something like when you're seeing something that no one else can see, or you're sort of you're not seeing what everybody else sees.
Right.
You've got tomatoes in your eyes. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah, kind of similar to the rose-colored glasses.
Sort of, but rose-colored glasses, that's a good sort of like conceptual similarity, but
Uh-huh.
the rose-colored glasses means to look on the bright side, to see
Oh.
everything, like as if it's perfect.
Okay, gotcha. I see.
Like almost to wear magical glasses.
Right. I gotcha. I see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just tomatoes in your eyes or on your eyes?
You have tomatoes on your eyes.
On your eyes.
And it's Tomaten auf den Augen haben. Tomaten auf den Augen haben.
Augen haben.
You have tomatoes on your eyes.
That's fun.
Tomaten auf den Augen haben. Tomaten auf den Augen haben.
Tomato hobnoggin.
You're not listening to me. It's Tomaten auf den Augen haben.
Hobnoggin with tomatoes?
Habenhagen. No, Augen haben. Now you're messing me up. All right, but anyway.
Goodness.
To get off that, some theories for why idioms are shared across languages include shared ancestral language, and that also implies that they share the same topography and geography. So also loan translations, meaning like between words, like as the languages, it sort of is like as the languages rub up against each other,
Right.
And also sometimes even the elites or upper class, the business folk, corresponding with one another in different places, as industry, you might say, or what do they call it? Commerce. Commerce would help, make these phrases.
Marketing is another one, probably.
Well, I don't know how much marketing they did back then.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
But anyway, can you think of a couple common ones? Because I've got a list of 100. I'm not going to read anywhere close to 100.
Common ones. Ones I think that share between...
Well, just no. This is a
just
list
in
of
general?
English, our
Oh,
language, ours.
Okay.
And then we'll take a look at a couple others.
Uh,
That's why I don't want to spend too long on the English either,
Sure.
because I think some of the others that we could hit would be more interesting maybe to other
Right.
people, but I kind of just want to demonstrate a little more like some English idioms that they might know and kind of get people in the spirit.
Barking up the wrong tree.
Oh, barking up the wrong tree. That's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah.
How would you... Because, right, like a lady might say that to a fella, say, at a bar. Say he comes over.
Yeah.
Let's say she likes ladies. Let's say.
Okay.
And her lady friend is in the bathroom, and some guy comes over. Hey, honey, can I buy you a drink? She might say, You're barking up the wrong tree, pal.
Fella. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good idiom because it sort of means I play for the other team.
Oh, that's
How about that?
one.
There's another idiom, right?
Yeah.
So this is fun. I think idioms are fun. There's a ton of them.
Oh, yeah.
And also to hit that point again, it's not that idioms, the concept of idioms don't translate, for people who are learning English.
Right.
It's that there's just so many
Right.
in English. You can almost just go on and on and on. But I hope that our viewers, no matter how many of these idioms or if they get annoying, I hope they'll stay with us through thick and thin.
Right.
I hope they might hang in there.
Keep the faith.
Yeah, I mean, please, there's no reason to check out early or call it a day because there's a lot more to this segment, and I hope you'll stay with us. We're going to hit some from the Romans, the Brazilians, and the Swedes.
Swedes.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I'll tell you one of my favorites, and I don't know if it's on this list. Oh, here's a good one. Beating a dead horse.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Beating a dead horse. The elephant in the room.
Oh, that's a good one.
Well, one of my favorites, I don't know if it's going to be in here, but a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I'll tell you how I interpret it. I think it's good to, appreciate what you've got.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
whatever you've got, yeah. I mean,
Right.
it might be better if you invested in this or give it to that guy, or he'll give you 2 birds. Maybe you'll get 2 birds later. But sometimes having
Right.
your bird,
It's good enough.
is worth 2.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get into a situation where having 1 bird is worth 2.
Yeah, because while you're, I mean, you already got 1, so what's, you think you're going to get 2 more? What if you lose the one you already got?
Yeah, why risk the 1?
Yeah.
That's how I sort of take it.
Right.
Why risk what you got?
Right. You already got 1. Why?
That's
why
right.
go
A
after more?
bird in the hand.
Yeah,
See,
you already got
is
it.
better than like 2
that you
not
haven't even got
in
yet.
the hand that
right.
are just out there. Yeah, where
Exactly.
someplace else. I love that one. I'm glad you see eye to eye with
Right.
me.
They're wishing upon a dream to get 2 more.
Yeah. Well, so far so good, but I think we might be comparing apples to oranges. So
Apples and oranges.
even though curiosity killed the cat, I say
The
we
same
should.
cat that got out of the bag.
The cat's out of the bag.
It's
That's
out.
right. I want to
Now
move
it's
on.
dead because it was curious.
The cat's out of the bag. I'd like to move on.
All right, yeah, we'll stop beating that
All
dead
right.
horse to go back to that one.
That's right. I'd like to move on, talk about some Latin
Latin.
idioms.
What?
I studied Latin for like, I don't know, something approximately akin to 5-6 years, something like that. I don't know what it was.
Well, if you also go back and listen to our state mottos episode, you'll learn about that.
Oh, that's right.
'cause
I've
we
talked
went over
about
a
it
bunch of
before.
Latin then too.
Oh, yeah, sure. I studied a lot of it. I enjoyed it. So that's why I like to bring it up
Yep.
and use the opportunity. You know, I don't get to do it all that much. I hope I'm not too teachy, preachy, or boring. But like with any language, Latin contains idioms. And for instance, there's one I maybe have even talked about. It goes ad kalendas graikos, which means on the Greek day of the kalends. A shortened version is like at the Greek kalends. That'll happen
Oh.
at the Greek kalends.
Yeah,
And it's
you
sort
told
of-
me about this one.
Yeah, it's kind of like how we say like when pigs fly.
Yeah.
That'll happen when hell freezes over.
Uh-huh.
Well, the kalends is a dating system. I think I might have talked about that on one of these wacky episodes. Their dating system, the Ides of March, the E-days.
Yeah, not like dating, like courtship.
Yeah,
Dating like
how
calendar.
they date their calendars.
Right.
That's right. So the Greeks didn't have a kalends, which is how the Romans numbered the end of a month. But the Greeks didn't do it that way. So they would say, yeah, at the end of the Greek calendar, whatever, at the end of the
Right.
Greek month, and there is no end of the Greek month.
Right.
So
Right.
this next one's interesting too, and it's interesting because it's going to sound weird to us all the way through. It's going to sound weird, but you just have to remember that it would not have meant this to them. It would not have sounded weird to them like it does to us. Okay?
Right.
So this one's called nuces relinquere, and it's very interesting. It means to relinquish the nuts. The reference to nuts is essential to understanding this idiom. Since there were very few toys that lower class parents could afford, ancient Roman children played with nuts. I don't know how they probably, tied them up to different things with them. They probably,
They played with them like marbles.
made slingshots. There's probably all kinds of things you
Mhm.
could do with nuts. They were just a cheap
They could
thing
play the
that gets-
slide game like when my brother and I were kids. Like we go to the park and gather up a bunch of acorns, and one of us would go to the top of the slide with the acorns, and
Yeah.
one of us was at the bottom of the slide with a cup, and they had to try to catch the acorns.
It's a fun game, catch the acorn.
Yeah.
I probably played it myself, or maybe, I don't know. But
Loved it.
apparently it's very common, but they had a phrase because of that to relinquish the nuts, nuces relinquere. And it meant that someone was no longer a child. In other
Oh.
words, only children played with nuts. So to give up one's nuts meant that one's childish ways were abandoned.
Right,
You had grown up. You had put your toys away.
right.
It
Huh.
doesn't mean you lost your nuts or
Right.
no.
Yeah, I can see how some people would find that one a little strange.
Yeah.
That's
So,
interesting, though. I kind of, when you said the word for relinquish, I figured that's what that would be, because it sounds pretty close to it. Definitely didn't know nuts, though.
yeah. Well, I think the next one, and probably the last one that I think we'll do, because I don't want to get too boring. I would love to just read down this whole list of all these, but this one is another interesting one. It goes, Proximus egomet mihi. And it means the closest one to me is myself.
Okay.
Proximus closest or nearest, while egomet means myself and mihi means to me. I think they have that a little bit jumbled up. I'm not going to get into it, but to put it another way, it means I am the one with the closest affinity to myself, which they're probably getting a little more literal. I don't know why. But I like how they end up comparing it to the parallel English, every man for himself. And that is sort of what they're going for. That, like they say, you keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
Right.
Well, that would probably be a phrase. I don't have it here in front of me, but I bet it goes back. I bet you could at least force it into Latin anyway.
Yeah.
Because this seems very similar. Because even though you may keep your friends close and your enemies closer,
Right.
Proximus egomet mihi. The closest one to me is me. Every man for himself, bro.
Right. That's interesting.
Yep. It is interesting.
Nice.
Well, now, upon your suggestion, you remember where you want to go next?
I get to pick which one? Or
Well, you already did pick.
Oh, I mean, like which order of the two?
Yeah.
I guess Brazil.
Yes.
Brazil. Okay, we're doing Brazil.
So there are some interesting ones. I didn't read too many of these, but the second one really made me laugh.
Okay.
Because you might like cats.
Yeah.
I like ducks.
Oh,
so
ducks
we got
are
a
good
duck
too.
coming up.
All right.
But apparently there's a couple of animals involved because the first one's about an animal. So here we go. These are from Brazil. So just to read this little intro, I think it's interesting. I haven't necessarily read it to myself, but I'm going to read it now. Idioms are great. They're little nuggets of culture and history hidden inside a language, completely nonsensical to outsiders who lack the context of a native speaker.
Yeah.
As a Portuguese learner, I'm tickled whenever I encounter one, so I've collected some of them here to share with you.
Portuguese.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go with how I think this would read. I have not studied Portuguese, but I have studied many of the Romance languages, so I might be closer than some, but I'm not going to claim to be accurate, okay? So, fazor uma vanquina. The literal translation is to make a little cow.
Okay.
And the more looser meaning would be like to fundraise by pooling money together. You know, like how you might, like we say a kitty.
Huh.
You know, or there is an expression, you put money in the kitty, Kitty, the kitty. I think it's more English, but yeah, it's like a pool or a pot. We might say pot.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So the next one is pagar o pato. And it means to pay for the duck. And apparently the looser meaning is like to take the fall or something. Like we would say the fall guy.
Oh.
Or
pay for the duck.
The scapegoat. Well, this one is more like the pay duck. The pay duck. Scapegoat, pay duck.
You were gonna pay for the duck.
Pagar o pato.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Quer a ficha. This one literally means something like the token to drop or the token drops. Oh, I kind of get it now. I kind of see it. When the token drops.
Huh.
Like in a jukebox or something. When something clicks and it finally takes, and
Okay.
registers your money. The fact that
Yeah.
you put money in it
All right.
clicks.
Yeah.
That's what it's going for.
That's interesting.
So when the token drops,
Oh,
Cara
the token
feature.
dropped.
you got it? The light came on?
Yep.
Eureka!
It clicks. Yeah.
Oh, this one's interesting. So para inglés ver.
Ooh.
Just for the English to see. It's more like how we would say, like, just
Putting
for
on
appearances.
Kind of like putting on airs.
Yeah, something like that. Like, just for appearances. Just to be on their level.
Oh yeah.
Just for them.
Just for the English.
So para
to
inglés
see.
ver.
That's an interesting one.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this one's interesting. O pexe more pe la boca.
Oh.
Fish die through the mouth. We might say it's something more like loose lips sink ships.
Oh. Yeah.
O pexe more pe la boca.
Fish die through the mouth.
Yeah, but I don't get that because boca is pretty close to like lips. Or how does that in Spanish? It's like bezos. But
I think it is mouth because I think the word for lips in Spanish starts with an L. I wouldn't know how to exactly pronounce it.
okay, it could be true. All right, well, what's that bring us down to? The last one we were going to go over?
We're in Sweden.
That's
Here's
right.
some Swedish idioms.
Yeah, and there's some interesting ones. I mean, you'll see, like, again, some of these are pretty close to, like, what we would say in some cases, but there's interesting differences and stuff, So, they have one, and I don't even know. I can try. Lotsam plot. Easy as a pancake.
Oh,
Or
of course it is.
we might say easy as pie.
Yeah.
Easy as cake, something like that. Easy as pie. They have one. This goes Laga benen pa regen.
Oh.
To lay the legs on the back. And we would say something closer to like to make a run for it.
What? To lay the legs on the back.
Like to really floor it. I think we
Wow.
might say something like that, to just have your legs touching your back.
Yeah,
like
you're
kicking
running
so
hard.
high you're
Yeah.
touching your back, to
Huh.
have your legs on your back.
I feel like these ones are more strange than the ones from Brazil.
Laga benen parigen. To make a run
Alright.
for it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, okay. Here's ha en gas a plakland. Hang on, let me try that again. Ha en gas a plakad. Ha en glas a plakad. Yeah. Ha en gas a plakad. I have a goose to pick. Or like we would say, I have a bone to pick. I have a bone to
okay.
pick with you.
Huh, that's interesting.
Ha en gas a
goose.
plakad.
Have a goose to pick with you.
Ha en gas a plakad.
Alright, that's kind of fun. Have a goose to pick with you.
No, I have a goose to pluck.
Oh, I have a goose to pluck. Okay.
Ha en gas a plakad.
Hot and gossip plucking.
I have a goose to pluck.
Have a goose to pluck. Yeah.
Ha en gas a plakad.
Hot and gossip plucking.
Ha en gas.
Hot and goss.
Ha en gas
Hot and goss.
a plakad.
A plucking. Tomato hobnoggin.
Tomaten off and
Often, yeah.
often gotten.
Tomaten often hobgotten.
Tomaten off in otten gotten.
Often got. Oh, you got tomatoes on your eyes, bro. I can't wait to say that.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. I think this has been fun. I think idioms are really interesting.
Yeah.
I used to want to teach English. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. We've gotten some laughs out of it. I mean, some of them are interesting, you know.
Hey, if you learn anything today, it's tomaten often haben. What? I almost got it.
Nah. I
Oh,
don't
come
think
on.
You're not going to get it.
Tomaten often.
It's not often.
Well, I'm saying often.
You're speaking English.
I know, because it helps.
No, it doesn't. You're supposed to be speaking German.
I know. Well, what is it?
Tomaten.
Tomaten.
Off.
In.
Otten.
Otten.
Haben.
Haben.
Tomaten. Off. Otten.
Haben. Goodness gracious, I'm glad I don't live in Germany. Because I don't want tomatoes on my eyes.
All right, well, folks, tell us which one was your favorite idiom.
Yeah, and tell us some of your favorites if it wasn't in this list.
Yeah, I mean, God knows there's plenty of them out there.
Yep.
In plenty languages.
That's right. You can tell us by leaving a comment.
If you're listening to this abroad,
oh yeah, definitely.
we hope you might enjoy.
Yeah,
the segment.
correct us. Tell us how silly we sounded. Well, how silly Frank sounded with his Swedish and his
my attempts.
Portuguese.
Yeah, let me know if you happen to hot and gossip plakken.
Yeah, you got a goose to pluck with him.
Just let me know.
Yeah, and you folks can go follow us on your favorite podcast platform. You can find us on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, and many more. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search at WWRS and leave a comment about your favorite idioms. You can send us an email about your favorite idioms. You can just look for those email addresses in the show notes in the description. And you can also become a paid subscriber through our host, Red Circle, to hear extra parts that weren't included in the public episode.
Not only should you, but we would ask you, this is a call to action, folks. I mean, we would highly encourage you to subscribe if you have not already. If you're listening to this, please subscribe, hit the bell so that you don't miss future notifications. If you happen to be listening to us on YouTube, I suppose. But anywhere else, if you're listening to us on Red Circle or some other platform, please consider subscribing. It's only $1 a month, $10 a year. That's really not a lot when you think about both, the quality and, type of information that you're getting out there from other sources. We do put out good content. We hope you'd see the savings in buying the 1 year, membership. Don't you think? I mean,
sure.
It's not very much, so we hope you would consider it if you haven't already and encourage others in your family or social network to do the same. But as always, we certainly thank you for listening.